Your bank account can show $40,000, and you can still be making a $188,000 mistake without ever knowing it. Not because you did anything wrong, because you did exactly what you were told was right. There's a sentence that gets repeated in almost every family, every financial advice video, every responsible adult conversation. Get out of debt as fast as possible. Debt is the enemy. The goal is zero. And on the surface, that sentence sounds completely correct. It sounds like wisdom. Here's what nobody adds to that sentence. There isn't one kind of debt. There's debt that makes you poorer every month you carry it. And there's debt that makes you richer every month you carry it. And your brain cannot tell them apart. It treats both with the exact same fear response. That single blind spot is worth, on average, hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why being debt-free can quietly be one of the most expensive financial positions a person can be in. Meet Marcus and David. Both 30, both living in Phoenix, Arizona. Both just received a $40,000 inheritance. Same week, same amount, same city, same age. Both earn $70,000 a year. Same starting line. One decision is about to send them in opposite directions for the next 20 years. Marcus does what he's always been taught is smart. He pays off his $18,000 car loan completely. He pays off his $15,000 remaining student loans. He puts the last $7,000 into a savings account as a cushion. Within a month, Marcus is completely debt-free. He tells his family. Everyone is proud. He sleeps better than he has in years. For the first time in his adult life, he owes nothing to anyone. David takes his $40,000 and uses it as a down payment on a $200,000 duplex rental property. He takes out a mortgage for the remaining $160,000 at 7% interest. His monthly payment is $1,065. He rents both units for a combined $100 to $800 a month. David now has $160,000 of debt hanging over his name. His mother asks if he's sure. David isn't entirely sure either. He signs anyway. On day one, if you asked 100 people which of these two made the smarter decision, the overwhelming majority would say Marcus without hesitation. He owes nothing. David owes $160,000. It's not even close. And for the next few years, everything about Marcus's life is going to keep reinforcing that belief, right up until the moment the math tells a completely different story. Marcus's life feels immediately lighter. No car payment, no student loan payment. That's roughly $550 a month he's no longer sending anywhere. He redirects it into his $7,000 cushion, and within a year, it's grown to about $14,000 sitting in a savings account earning 1% interest. He feels like he's won at money. Friends start asking him for advice. Marcus becomes the responsible one. Here's the mechanism hiding inside that feeling. Researchers call it the debt aversion effect. Your brain processes owing money as an active, ongoing threat, almost identical to how it processes physical danger, regardless of whether that debt is mathematically working in your favor. Marcus's brain isn't running a return on investment calculation. It's running a threat removal calculation. And removing a threat feels incredible. It just doesn't always make you wealthier. David's first year looks messier from the outside. One unit sits empty for 6 weeks while he finds a tenant. $900 in lost rent. He spends a weekend repainting a bedroom himself to save money. His $1,065 mortgage payment comes out every month like clockwork, with $160,000 still sitting on his name like a weight he can feel every time he checks his bank statement. Some nights he genuinely wonders if he made a mistake. After the vacancy and minor repairs, his rental income nets him roughly $700 for the entire year. $700 for taking on $160,000 in debt. If the story stopped right here, Marcus would look like the genius and David would look like a man who made a $160,000 mistake for $700. But here's what's happening underneath the surface that neither of them can see yet, and it's about to change everything. By year 3, Marcus's life looks remarkably stable. His $14,000 cushion has crept up to about $16,500 at 1% interest. He's debt-free, contributing a little each month, and he feels exactly like he's supposed to feel. Secure, responsible, ahead of most people his age. His coworkers still see him as the smart one with money. He believes it too. David's duplex has been quietly doing something Marcus's savings account is structurally incapable of doing. Phoenix real estate appreciated roughly 4% annually over this period. Nothing dramatic, just steady. David's $200,000. Property is now worth approximately $225,000. His mortgage balance has dropped slightly to about $153,000 through regular payments. That puts his equity, what he actually owns, at roughly $72,000. He started with $40,000 in cash. He now controls $72,000 in equity, and his tenants have been covering nearly all of his mortgage payment the entire time. Sit with that for a second. David's $40,000 became $72,000 in 3 years, without him contributing a single additional dollar from his own pocket. Marcus's $40,000, split between debt payoff and savings, produced roughly $16,500, sitting in an account. Here's the pattern interrupt that should genuinely bother you. David's debt, though $160,000, everyone warned him about, is the exact mechanism that turned his $40,000 into $72,000. The debt isn't separate from his wealth. The debt is how he got the wealth. Marcus avoided the very tool that was doing all the heavy lifting. By year 5, the gap accelerates in a way that's hard to ignore. David's property is now worth approximately $243,000. His mortgage balance has dropped to about $148,000. His equity sits at roughly $95,000. His rental income has covered nearly his entire mortgage payment for 5 consecutive years, meaning his tenants have been paying down his loan for him while the asset grows. Underneath, Marcus's account, still earning roughly 1%, sits at approximately $17,300 side by side. Marcus has $17,300. David has $95,000 in equity, plus 5 years, where his housing costs were essentially covered by someone else. Same starting amount, same 5 years. The gap is now $77,700, and it's accelerating. Your brain has a specific blind spot here, and it's called the leverage invisibility effect. When you use cash, you can only ever grow the amount you put in. When you use debt to acquire an appreciating asset, you're not just growing your $40,000, you're capturing 100% of the appreciation on the full $200,000 asset, even though you only contributed 20% of it. Your brain sees the debt clearly. It does not intuitively see that the debt is what multiplied your exposure to growth by 5 times. The risk is visible. The multiplication is invisible. Now here's something worth addressing directly, because it's the most common objection to this entire story. Someone watching this is thinking, what if Marcus had invested instead of just saving? What if his $14,000 had gone into an index fund, averaging 8 to 10% instead of a savings account at 1%? That's a fair challenge. And the honest answer is, Marcus's outcome improves significantly, but only under a very specific set of conditions. He'd need a low interest rate environment on any debt he's avoiding, access to tax-advantaged accounts, and near-perfect consistency for 2 full decades without ever touching the money during a downturn. That's not impossible, but it's a high bar. And it's a bar most people don't actually clear, which is precisely why the data on this keeps coming back the same way. Here's the hidden truth that explains why this pattern repeats across generations, and it has almost nothing to do with math. Being debt-free isn't just a financial position. For most people, it's an identity. "I don't owe anyone anything" is one of the most emotionally loaded sentences in personal finance, tied to self-worth, independence, sometimes even to feeling like a real adult for the first time. When Marcus paid off his debt, he wasn't just making a financial choice. He was claiming an identity his entire family celebrated. People who understand interest earn it. People who don't, pay it. And the line between those two groups usually isn't intelligence. It's which side of that emotional transaction someone was raised to trust. David, meanwhile, voluntarily took on an identity nobody celebrates. The guy with $160,000 in debt. Even though that debt was attached to a cash-flowing, appreciating asset, the social and emotional weight of carrying it was real. He had to tolerate discomfort and quiet doubt for years, while the math worked in his favor in the background. This is the actual trade almost nobody explains correctly. It's not debt versus no debt. It's, are you willing to tolerate the discomfort of owing money while an asset works for you? Or do you need the relief of owing nothing, even if that relief has a price tag attached? And that price tag is about to get a lot bigger, because we haven't gotten to what happens when David does this twice. By year 10, something has changed the entire shape of this story. 3 years ago, David refinanced his duplex through a cash-out refinance, pulling out $30,000 in equity, and used it as a down payment on a second rental property. A $180,000 single-family home. Same model. Tenant covers most of the mortgage. Asset appreciates underneath. By year 10, Property 1 is worth approximately $290,000 with a mortgage balance around $135,000, equity of $155,000. Property 2, after 7 years of appreciation, is worth approximately $225,000 with a mortgage balance around $158,000, with equity of $67,000. Combined equity, approximately $222,000 for a decade. Tenants have covered nearly all of David's mortgage payments across both properties. Marcus, 10 years in, debt-free the entire time, contributing steadily to a savings account, now earning closer to 2% in recent years, has approximately $34,000. David, $222,000 in equity. 2 properties, 2 streams of rental income. Marcus, $34,000 in a savings account. Same starting point. Same 10 years. The gap is $188,000. And David never put in another dollar of his own cash beyond the original $40,000. That multiplied his money twice, but the number that actually matters most isn't $188,000. It's what each man's money is doing for him right now, today, without either of them lifting a finger. Marcus's $34,000 sits there generating roughly $680 a year. David's 2 properties, combined, generate enough rental income to cover both mortgages and put approximately $400 a month in his pocket after expenses. Nearly $4,800 a year. In cash, every year, indefinitely, while the underlying asset values continue climbing in the background. One of these numbers is a balance. The other is an income stream. They are not the same kind of thing, and your brain has been treating them as if they were. Now here's the reframe that changes how you look at every financial decision for the rest of your life. Marcus didn't make a bad decision because he's bad with money. Marcus made the decision that felt safest to a brain that evolved to treat owing nothing as safety and owing something as danger. Full stop. No nuance. No exceptions. For most of human history, owing something to someone in your tribe was genuinely dangerous. It created obligation and vulnerability that could be called in at the worst possible moment. Your brain still runs that ancient software. It cannot distinguish between, I owe my cousin a favor I can't repay, and I owe a bank money against an asset that's paying for itself. Both register as the identical category. I owe someone something. Danger. David's $160,000 mortgage never felt safe to his brain either. He just had enough information and enough tolerance for that discomfort to act against what his instincts were screaming at him. That's not bravery. That's knowing the discomfort was misinformation. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. David's brain sent him exactly the same warning signal Marcus's did. The difference between these 2 men was never about fear. It was about which one of them treated that fear as data, and which one treated it as a decision. This is why the same pattern repeats generation after generation. Across every income bracket, regardless of education level. It's not a math problem. It's an inherited emotional response to a 4-letter word. And almost nobody ever stops to ask whether that response is giving them accurate information about the situation they're actually in right now, today, with the specific numbers in front of them. So what should you actually do with this? Not all debt is David's debt. Credit card debt at 24% funding. A vacation is not the same conversation. That's debt with no asset behind it, no income attached, pure cost, working against you every single day it exists. The debt that built David's wealth had 3 specific characteristics. It was attached to an asset that could generate income. That income covered most or all of the debt payment, and the asset itself had a history of appreciating over time. Remove any one of those 3 conditions, and the entire calculation changes completely. This isn't a blanket endorsement of debt. It's a description of when debt becomes a tool instead of a trap. And there's a sequence that matters here too. One a lot of people actually get right without realizing how important it is. If your employer offers a 401k match, that comes first. It's an immediate 50 to 100% return that nothing else on this list can compete with. After that, high-interest debt. Anything above roughly 7 to 8% usually needs to go, because at that rate, it's working against you faster than almost anything else can work for you. What's left after those 2 steps is where the real decision lives. And that's exactly the decision Marcus and David made differently. 3 years and 4 years respectively after their starting point, when neither of them had any idea how much it would matter. If you're sitting on cash right now, wondering whether to pay something off completely or use it strategically, the question isn't, is debt good or bad? The question is, does this specific debt meet those 3 conditions? Or am I about to feel relieved today for a decision that has a $188,000 price tag 20 years from now? There's a comment that shows up under almost every video like this, and it's worth addressing directly, because it's not wrong. Being debt-free does open doors. Quitting a job you hate, taking risks you couldn't take with payments hanging over you, sleeping through the night without that low hum of obligation in the back of your mind. That's real, and it's not nothing. But it's worth being honest about what that freedom actually costs in dollar terms, so you're choosing it deliberately instead of by default. Because Marcus has that freedom too, and so does David, and only one of them also has $188,000 he didn't have to choose between. If nobody ever sat you down and explained that debt has a personality, that some of it works for you and some of it works against you, and your brain genuinely cannot tell them apart without help, that's exactly the gap this channel exists to close. Drop in the comments. Are you a Marcus or a David right now? And don't just answer for today. Think about the next opportunity that comes your way. The next time you have cash sitting somewhere and a decision in front of you. And ask yourself honestly which one you'll actually become. The debt that scares you and the debt that's quietly stealing from you are very rarely the same debt. And almost nobody ever stops long enough to check which one they're avoiding.